confidence. It's applied courage. It's doing the things that scare you. This is my first podcast. Was I nervous? Was I scared? Absolutely.
Wolfpack fans, get ready because today we are welcoming home a powerhouse, Brooke Huckabee. Welcome back, Brooke. You are an NC State alum who's gone on to become the head of Global Revenue Enablement at SAS, a TBJ 40 under 40 leader, a champion for women in analytics, and a community force serving on boards that change lives. You bring the perfect blend of strategy, heart, and unstoppable energy. From empowering these global teams to teaching ballet and trampoline fitness, and I know you did some of that this morning, Brooke shows us what it looks like when leadership, purpose, and passion collide. Brooke, welcome back to NC State.
Thank you. You just made that sound very impressive. I need to steal it for my LinkedIn profile.
You can have it. You have done all the hard work on this. So on Engineering Pack Pod, we love to talk to leaders about what it's like to be out in the professional world, to inspire some of our younger alums and our soon-to-be graduates about the professional life. And I know you head up a big group and you send emails out to them, and you've come up with some wonderful ideas in those emails. Tell us a little bit about yourself, the group that you oversee, and what these emails are all about.
Yes. Okay, so I lead revenue enablement. That is a big word, and it's something that's kind of evolved over the years for a need, especially within customer-facing roles. So it's my job, and you'll learn all throughout today that one of my passions, one of my values is helping people. And what I love about this role and this team is that we are helping customer-facing roles be able to have everything that they need to do their job successfully. So when you think about a customer-facing role at SAS, they need to understand the software. They need to understand what problem it's solving for our customer. They need to know about pricing and packaging and all the things in order to have a compelling conversation with our prospects and customers. And so we package up things and put it in the terms and in the formats that resonate with the sales teams. So that's kind of in a nutshell what we do. We have several people under the umbrella of revenue enablement, and each Friday, I can't even remember how it started. I think I must have had some, moment in the car with my teenager about a lesson or something. It's like, that actually might work for my work team too. I think it was the whole eat the frog. He was dreading whatever his first class was. And I wrote an email to them, hey, this is something I was thinking about this morning and thought you guys might enjoy it. I got so much positive feedback of this really helped me. This is something I found valuable. And so that just kind of continued. So every Friday morning now I send an email, and it's been happening for about a year and a half. And a lot of this has been a part of that effort.
And one of the things in your email, if I am correct, is something called the 7 C's of personal brand. I'm very curious about that. Now, there's a lot of C's in there, so we might have to take them one by one. Do you mind, maybe for a student that's hearing about the 7 C's for the first time, what exactly is a personal brand and why does it matter in your career?
Yeah, so this came up because I have several early career folks on my team. They were interns first, and then that turned into full-time employees. And one of the things that kept bubbling up is the importance of personal brand, especially when you don't have the other credentials to come along with it. So what is it that you're bringing to the table when you may not have the experience, the certifications, all the things that come with an experienced tenure within a company? And so we started talking about the importance of how you show up and what you're bringing to the room and the space. And I kind of define personal brand as what people say about you when you're not in the room. Because we think about our smile as our logo, our personality might be our trademark, but then when you leave the room, what are they saying about you? That's your personal brand. It's not your title, it's not your resume, but it's really about what you're leaving and how people feel when you're around them.
I like that because when I work with students, and I've worked with thousands of them over multiple decades, I always say when you graduate, you're going to leave a reputation, and I'm going to think about you, and I'm going to remember these things about you. So it's kind of these intangibles as you were describing.
That's exactly right, because the whole Maya Angelou quote that everyone's so familiar with is, they're not going to remember what you said, but it goes on to say, but they will remember how you made them feel. And ultimately, that is personal brand. How did you feel? I'm not going to remember exactly what a professor taught me, exactly how to do X, Y, Z, but I will remember the feeling that I had in the moments in interacting with peers and with, for me, colleagues.
So the 7 P's come into this.
P's,
Oh,
7
I said P, and thank you for correcting me. We're going to do the 7 C's. Let's get it right.
Yes. So it starts with clarity. I want to preface this by saying it's fuzzy in the beginning. I don't expect everyone to say, aha, I know exactly what I stand for. And it really boils down to what are your values. This isn't your laundry list of your experience or your courses or whatever. It's really about your values. What is it that you stand for? And once you build that clarity, then that's where the other 7 C's start coming into play. But focusing on that, what's meaningful to me and why does it matter? What I have found is, at least for me and why I've stayed at SAS for so long, is that my values are valued by SAS, and they're really close to SAS values. And I'll give you an example. I know Dr. Goodnight is very passionate about people and his employees, and he talks about his greatest asset being the ones that drive in and out of the gate each day. One of my values is empathy. And empathy really does come down to that human interaction and just people. So I think that that's really important as some of the students are looking for jobs, is being aware of that. What are my values and where am I wanting to go? And are those values that are supported by that organization? But that gets me into the second one, so consistency.
Okay, can I jump in?
Yes,
I want to talk a little bit about the clarity and the values, because we've talked about that on this podcast and we'll link up to that. But I always use the analogy of the foundation of your house. If the foundation is cracked, everything falls down. So thinking about what your non-negotiables are and where you set your boundaries. And a lot of times people don't take the time to do that clarifying. And they're rushing through life and trying to get to the next thing, and to really reflect on what matters most to me, what is my purpose, and what will hold the house of my life up. So when you think about values, what would you say would be your deal breakers, your foundational values?
For me, inclusion, hands down. I think if you look at my work with Gigi's Playhouse, that resonates. But it's also in the workplace at SAS. Inclusion is important to me. Accountability, trust, creativity. I'll throw that one in there. Yeah. I love being creative. I like thinking outside of the box. And I value environments where I'm allowed to do that.
Right. And it's so important, like you said, to align that with the corporate culture and make sure that it's the right fit, not only with the most senior person, like a CEO or a chancellor, but also with your individual team. I always think that like your immediate supervisor is going to be the person you probably spend more time with than your loved ones, because we're at work a lot.
And that's why it's so important for you to feel comfortable being your true, authentic self. Yeah. And you can't be that until you've defined what that is, and not having to put on a costume each day to be something different.
And when I think about that too, I'm kind of thinking, okay, so what if my authentic self is kind of wild and out there and I'm going to the club and being crazy? That's different than your work self.
I will also say, though, and some of the early career hires are asking me similar questions, because it's not that you can't put a filter on. But if I were to ask you, just in the limited time that I've been sitting in this seat, what are 3 things that you would use to describe me? I would be willing to bet that they're the same or close to the same 3 that my husband would give, that my mother would give, that my children would give, that Dr. Goodnight would give to describe me. And that's what I mean. It's not that I don't let my guard down in front of my loved ones, or that I can't go into Dr. Goodnight's office and be professional. But I know the filters that I need to apply, but still come through with the things that are important to me. I can still be empathetic. I can still be creative. And if you kind of look at my tenure at SAS, my creativity is one of the reasons why I've taken on some new roles along the way. But all of that stuff's still there. I just know how to put a filter on when I need to in order to kind of read the room.
So good. I never thought about it that way. So if you ask one of your friends outside of work how they would describe you, and then you ask your work colleagues to describe you, it's still you. Exactly. You don't go in and put a mask on and do this other personality for 40 plus hours.
Exactly. Yeah, it goes back to that. How exhausting would it be to put on a costume every day? It's just, and it's, it dilutes the focus on your clarity, because then you don't remember which costume you put on. It's like, oh, well, if you're not being your true self, then you have no idea where you've been your not true self.
Yeah, yeah. Ooh, okay. So thank you for letting us dwell a second on clarity, because I know we have 7, but the next one you said maybe was consistency.
And this is a big one. It kind of goes back to the idea of being you wherever you are. And that means all of you, because you never know which experience or which side of you is going to resonate with the person across the table. Before the podcast, we had already connected on our love for the arts. That's not because I walked into this room as a SAS employee or as an alumni. We sat down, we had a conversation, got a little bit of knowledge about me and who I am, and that's the part that connected. So whenever you go into there, I would just encourage people is don't come in with just that one version of yourself. I'm not just a NC State alumni. I'm not just a SAS employee. I'm not just a mother. All of those things are what make me me, and that is my differentiator, whether it's by my employer or things like this. But all of those have to come together, and you have to be that all the time. It's that consistency that ultimately builds the next one, which is credibility. In a world where you're going from being a student to needing to find a job, you may not have all of the quote credentials that others do, that have the experience of being in the workplace for a long period of time. But what you can do is build that credibility through your consistent behaviors. And those consistent behaviors, for me as someone who hires early career, is more important to me than knowing a skill. I need to know that they're going to show up every day. And by show up, I don't mean walk in the door and sit in a chair. I mean show up, be engaged, be passionate. That's more important. I can teach skills. I can teach you how to do XYZ tasks, but that's the consistency that builds the credibility for me to trust someone and for me to trust them enough to give them a project and to hire them into my team, which I hold near and dear. And I don't want to mess that up. So that's the next one.
I think about it as they're all building on each other, from the consistency to the credibility that gives you that reputation, and people know they can count on you because you aren't all of a sudden changing into some other personality and trying to be exactly what they want. You're being who you are. And I love this idea that when you're new in the career, you can also mentor people who are more experienced than you. Like, it's reverse mentoring, and you shouldn't be intimidated by the fact that maybe you're too young, because I think we're all looking at this voice in our head that's kind of criticizing us a lot.
I tell them all the time, I have learned just as much from my interns than I think that they've probably learned from me. And it's helped me to really build trust within my team, knowing that I'm listening, I'm sitting down, and I care, and I want to learn more. I want to learn what's important to them, because I'm a lot older than them. It might be important for me in the workplace and what I need to feel comfortable in the environment and to be able to do my job well is different. And that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. But I need to know it, and I need them to trust me enough, which I say all the time, consistency builds credibility. Credibility earns trust. So if we continue to be consistent in our behavior, I'm showing up the same way every time. That's building that credibility between the two of us. And that credibility is what ultimately will earn your trust, because you know that I'm always going to be there and I'm going to show up in that same way.
Now, let me challenge you on that. So let's say you're having a bad day. Like, you were talking about how you have a teenager and you're a mother, and there's a lot going on outside of work. And maybe, I don't know, it could be the loss of a loved one, or you're going through a relationship ending. How does that affect your consistency? Are you allowed to struggle through a bad day at work?
Of course. But it goes back to my values. My values include transparency and empathy. So if I can show up and say, hey, team, I've had a rough morning, and don't think that has not happened. This past week was exhausting. Hey, I'm exhausted, but let's work through this. What do we need to do? But that's the transparency component. And if I don't have that relationship and I haven't earned their trust and they haven't earned my trust, I'm not able to be transparent. So it all really goes together. But to your point, we're not going to be rainbows every day. And that's okay, as long as you have that team that you trust and that you can depend on. And that's the beauty of true teams.
Yeah, for sure. I like that culture that you've built within your group, where people are humans and they're living a human experience. We're all just tall toddlers who still carrying around the baggage from that time and place. And I've been hanging out a lot with a toddler recently, my grandson, who's 2.5. And you made me think of this book that I read, which was called The Rabbit Listened. And I loved this book because it was something bad happened and a lot of the animals were trying to fix it. And the one animal that really helped was the one that listened and just gave space for the challenge to be processed.
I love that. I've never heard of the book, but now I need to look at
I
it.
know. I want to read it to my PhDs. I know it sounds crazy. All right, so now we've got clarity, we've got consistency, we've got credibility.
Confidence. So I heard someone use this sentence before when they described confidence, and they said that it's applied courage. It's doing the things that scare you. But we only can do those when, again, you talked about it building upon one another. We only really want to do that when we trust the people that are around us and when we know that they will be open and accepting for if we trip along the way. It's not going to be perfect. This is my first podcast. Was I nervous? Was I scared? Absolutely. But I'm here because, my team has helped me build the confidence of saying that these values that I express through my Friday emails, that they are valuable. And so that consistency of the Friday emails, the validation and the trust that I've built with my team builds the confidence. And it gives you that kind of like leap of faith to try something new and to apply courage.
Yeah, think about it, listener. The last time you did something for the first time, which is what you're doing today, yeah, you get all those butterflies and you get the insecurities and will I stumble and what if I mispronounce something? And then we have to remember that we're all improving. And I learned this on a panel last week, the difference between proving, like I'm going to be on this podcast and I'm going to prove to everybody in the world what an articulate speaker I am and how smart I am. I got to prove myself versus just improving. And it goes back to the authenticity.
It really does. And I say all the time, there's no such thing as perfection. We want to have progress. That's all I ask of my team. You don't have to be perfect. None of us are. Just continue to progress.
Yes, absolutely. And good enough is good enough. All right, number 5.
All right, connection. So I actually wrote this down because I wanted to get it right. And it's from the movie Alice in Wonderland. And the Mad Hatter says, the secret, Alice, is to surround yourself with the people who make your heart smile. It's then and only then that you find Wonderland. Some people say, well, it's not just the people that make your heart smile because, to your point, you have bad days or you have challenging moments. It goes back to surrounding yourself with the people that you trust. Those people, yes, they're going to make your heart smile. I love my work family and I love being around them and the energy, but they also challenge me. And challenge is good because if I'm just thinking that I don't have room for growth, then I'm just kind of stagnant. So it's surrounding yourself with the people that you trust enough to fail in front of, knowing that they're going to be there to pick you up as you build back. So that's connection point. But we're connecting here. And I think we can talk about all the like oohs and ahs, emotional parts of these things. But at the end of the day, LinkedIn is a great way of connecting with people. We want to make sure, especially as you're looking at your future job, the things that you want to do long term and that will support your goals, you've got to connect with the right people. And networking is huge. And you can build credibility on LinkedIn too. What are you passionate about? What are your values? Start posting about it, connecting with the right people, building credibility through getting recommendations, whether that's from a professor, from a colleague, or from your internship. So all of that can be applied through those digital channels such as LinkedIn.
I completely agree. Connection would be one of my values on that foundation, that if I didn't have the connection to the students that I work with, that's what gets me up in the morning. I get excited because I have a chance to have these conversations, to put a microphone in front of you and let you tell your story. I mean, everybody has a story, and that's what makes me really happy in my job. And this is the thing for our listeners to think about. Well, maybe connection is not your main driver, but what is it? And it goes back to the values.
Back to the values, exactly. And then continuous learning. That's the continuous learning, continuous improvement, however you want to call it. But this is about, especially in the fast-paced world right now with technology and AI and all the things, we have to adapt. Adaptability makes you relevant. And so continuous learning, it doesn't matter where you are in your career, where you are in your personal life, you have to put effort in. And we'll talk about that in a little bit later. But you've got to put in the work, and you've got to be able to continue to learn and build those skills.
I like that one because professional development, it doesn't end when you get your degree. All right, so we're going to wind up with one more. We're on the last one.
Yes, and I'll make this one quick. It's celebration, because we have to celebrate the small wins just as much as we do the big wins, because they add up to those big moments. So even though you may think of something like graduation as that big win and the big celebration, you're not going to get there without celebrating the test score or the mentoring that you're getting. So small wins, make sure you celebrate those too.
It's so important. We get to a point where it's that part of the semester and we took the test, and then we start thinking about the next test. And the bar just keeps getting raised and raised, and you have to stop and take that breath. Go get yourself a little howling cow. Yes. Just savor the moment. This went by really fast, Brooke. So I want to ask you, since we got through these 7, we have to have another conversation. Would you be willing to come back next week for part 2?
That sounds wonderful. Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity.